90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, your host for Law You Should Know. Today we'll be talking to Nancy Willard. She is the proponent of embrace civility in the digital age, and especially preventing bullying and effective intervention in the schools, especially as we return to school after COVID and among some of the social turmoil around the nation. Nancy, welcome to Law You Should Know.
Thank you very much. It's very great to be here.
Why are you so passionate about bullying prevention?
Young people who are treated badly in school are at high risk of a whole bunch of long-lasting concerns. This interferes with their ability to learn. The research is clear that they can have physical and emotional challenges well into adulthood. These are significant concerns. It's also related to suicides and school violence. So these are issues that we simply have to be doing better with. And
some of the famous, unfortunate, violent incidents were triggered, at least, in part by possible bullying, and that perhaps could have been dealt with earlier on, and there could have been a better intervention.
Right. Secret Service study of school shooters demonstrated that the vast majority, if not all of them, had experienced significant ongoing bullying that was not effectively addressed by their schools.
And if people are bullied, they're not going to be good students and not going to be good citizens, and it's going to be a slippery slope.
Yeah, unless we can help them gain greater resilience. Now, there are a lot of people who have been bullied who call it post-traumatic growth, able to pull together and have become really significant contributors to society. And they turned the fact that they had been bullied into strengths and compassion. So that's, it can go two different ways.
And the other way, it's going to have a long-term
negative impact. Yeah. And also an association with suicide.
And they're just not going to be as productive in society. They may suffer psychological and sociological ramifications.
Yeah.
So what kind of policies should a school have that will effectively prevent bullying?
Well, here's the problem. Long about 2010, when the Obama administration came in, he put a big effort in bullying prevention, and states upgraded their statutes and all of those kinds of things. And there was the federal Dear Colleague letters. And I had been working in cyberbullying and expanded to really address bullying. And quite frankly, since that time, there has been zero effectiveness. Especially in states that have these big, complicated state statutes, they're not working.
Okay, so just let's put it on the positive spin on it. Okay. What should be done to reduce bullying prevention and promote its prevention?
Okay, so we got
cyber over the internet and in person.
Right. We have to think about this in two contexts. How do we reduce this kind of hurtful behavior? And how do schools intervene when it occurs? So from the reduction, what we have to understand is that when adults try to express their expectations to young people, especially teenagers, about how they're going to treat each other, they're going to turn a blind a deaf ear, to that. We have to find the student leaders who have been consistently kind and respectful through their time, and a diverse group of these student leaders, and put them, quite frankly, in charge of fostering kindness, respect, and inclusion. And we also have to make sure that there's this approach called positive norms. If the students understand that the vast majority of other students don't like to see them being hurtful, and really admire those who step in and help and say they're sorry and apologize, they're going to be more likely to do that. And we have to increase students' resilience. The research on that is clear. Kids who have greater levels of resilience are less likely to be targeted and more likely to respond effectively if they are.
And how do we increase the levels of resilience?
Cool books on that. One of my books, the books are all under the name Be Positively Powerful. I have identified 7 key strategies for young people to help increase their resilience. Strategy 1, make positive connections. And that's including connections with trusted adults as well as good friends.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Strategy 2, reach out to be kind. The best thing that a young person who's being treated badly can do is get into the practice of 5 times a day reaching out to be kind to somebody else. 3, use your strengths. Figure out what you're strong in doing and where you want to go for your future, and focus on your strengths. Use your strengths every day. Number 4, focus on the good, gratitude. Pay attention to the good things that are happening in your life. That will increase your happiness, and that will allow you to just pass off and ignore any of those hurtful things that occur. Then, if things get tough, what you've got to do is recognize the need to stay calm, be mindful. So if you practice mindfulness every day, that gives you those brain connections that allow you to remain calm and regulated if something tough happens, if somebody's hurtful to you. So the mindfulness and self-regulation. Keep your personal power. If somebody's treating you badly, you need to, first of all, take a breath and remain calm, and then stand tall and think to yourself, I'm not going to let this person control how I feel about myself or respond. Recognize we can't control what's going to happen to us. We can control how we respond to that. And then the last strategy is think things through, problem solving, knowing how to, if you've got a negative situation or something's happened, how to figure out a strategy to respond to that. So those are my 7 Be Positively Powerful strategies.
And these all sound good for the people who might be the subject of being bullied or the victim. What are some strategies for dealing with the offender so they don't repeat it, or to prevent it or tone it down?
Right. First of all, when I talked about those positive norms, a lot of times kids think that everybody's going to look up to them if they're, boss man or a powerful girl. So what we do is we get the data from the school that says, hey, guess what? People really don't like you to see you do that. Secondly, I encourage schools to have a document that, or create shared values. What are the values of the school? And then ask each student to make personal commitments about how they're going to treat each other. And then if the student is hurtful, you say, look right here. I've got your personal commitment. How did your behavior compare to what you committed?
Right. What if the student is acting out badly? I mean, there's some kind of counseling or detention or putting them in jail or withholding sports? Sometimes
students are hurtful, excuse me, because others have been hurtful to them, or they also need assistance in gaining greater resilience. Other times, and the majority of the time, students are hurtful because they want to achieve dominance. And that's the path we've got to cut off.
So how do we cut off that path, the path of dominance?
If you look at the business literature, we find there's two kinds of bosses, the dominance bosses and the prestige bosses. The dominance bosses are the ones who are hurtful to others and set up competition, etc. And guess what? They die earlier. But this is right now. They're still the kid in school, so they're the bully. It's the same thing. It's the kids who are trying to get to the top of the social ladder, and so in school you have to change the dynamics. So if you're being hurtful, you're not going to get to the top of the social ladder.
So what kind of things should be done differently? They can't be on the football team. They can't go to the prom. What are those things?
What we do.
You hire them as the bodyguard for the victim? What kind of things are going to happen?
What we do is we get them to the point where they accept that what they did was wrong. And then we have them figure out how they're going to make things right to the victim, the target, and then also right to the school. And my recommendation to schools, if you've got somebody who's been hurtful, is their requirement is that they've got to reach out to be kind to somebody who they don't know 5 times a day, keep a report on that, and report to the principal at the end of each day who they were kind to. We want to change that kind of behavior. So since we are talking about law, under federal civil rights law has set forth marvelous regulations for how schools should respond in the case of these kinds of situations. They want schools to do an investigation to see whether or not a hostile environment that's interfering with the kids' learning exists. And if it does, schools are required to take steps reasonably calculated to stop the harassment. And that means more than just punishing them. Punishment's not going to do a thing. And remedy the harm to the target and correct any aspect of the school environment that might be contributing. And guess what? One of the aspects of the environment frequently is the fact that school staff are treating this student badly. So we've got. And
when you say treating badly, talking about the victim?
The target of, I hate using the word victim because.
Okay, the target.
The target can become victimized, or they can be resilient and empowered and get through this. So I don't like the word victim. So we've also got to make sure that school staff are not treating students and treating students who are different in a hurtful way.
And how do you do that? And how do you have them protect the student rather than add to the victimization?
We have to make some clear expectations, and that frequently is not done. And unfortunately, the way that this is handled in schools, if a student, usually students aren't going to report because they don't think the principal is going to do anything anyway. But if it sets up that they do realize that something will be done and start to report, what always happens now is if you file a harassment complaint against a staff member, the principal is going to go and do something with the staff member and then tell you, well, I can't tell you anything about it because that's employee relations. And you're going to be afraid of that staff member for a long time. So what we've got to do is come up with a requirement of remedy of harm to any student by a staff member who's been hurtful. This falls in the concept of restorative practices, where the person who was hurtful makes a personal acknowledgement of their wrongdoing to the person whom they charged, who they were hurtful to, and makes a commitment to stop and to say they're sorry or other kind of remedy of harm.
Is there someone in the school, a school psychologist, a social worker, a teacher, who the parent or the child who feels they're being mistreated should go to, who a safe haven they can go to for support?
Yeah, unfortunately, only about a third of the students in today's schools, and this is what I'm trying to address, in today's schools, only about a third of students who are really seriously bullied and not feeling happy will even tell the school. And that's because about a third of the time things get better, but another third of the time things stay the same, and a third of the time they get worse. So
who can they go to for support? You know, in the
it would be better to go to a counselor. I'm not, and tell the counselor that they need some help dealing with this than it would to be going to most assistant principals. Now, I will tell you, I just produced a 3-part video series on all of my theories, and this is a 3-hour series, okay? And I have a full video on how to intervene, but a longer one on how to really build a positive school climate.
Okay, and Nancy, just tell us again your website where people can listen to the podcast and this other information.
Right, it's bepositivelypowerful.com. And they can see my books, and they can watch these videos. They're offered at no charge. I'm requesting a gratuity donation, but I want to make a positive difference. I think next fall is going to be really, really tough for a lot of students coming back to school.
And is it important to intervene at the high school or junior high school level where these things are going? Because otherwise these people are going to go on to society, the victim and the bullier, and
Absolutely.
Things are not going to get better.
We've got to stop this as early as possible. And that's why we've got to get, especially in high schools, middle schools, and even at the elementary school level, we've got to have student leadership teams who are focusing on building kindness, respect, and inclusion.
And should that be other students who are trained to intervene, to protect, to befriend, to support the person being bullied?
What we want,
and perhaps to tell the person who's doing the bullying that's not appropriate and they should stop and direct their energy somewhere else?
Right. That's actually a program that I've developed for students. I'm revising it slightly right now. There are 5 things we need to teach all students. One is how to reach out to be kind if you see somebody being treated badly. 2 is how to safely tell somebody who's being hurtful to stop, and also how to counsel your friend who's being hurtful to stop. 3 is recognizing the really serious situations that need to be reported to an adult. 4 is how to stop, own it, and fix it if you've made a mistake and were hurtful. And 5 is how to be positively powerful so that you're going to reduce the potential of being bullied and know how to respond with strength if you are.
So it's to have some effective intervention for the bullier to tone it down.
Yep.
To bystanders should intervene in some way or get someone who can, and also to provide support for the person being bullied so they know they have friends and support out there so they don't react in an inappropriate way.
Yes, yeah. Having a good friend who can support you, or just somebody stepping in and say, hey, I saw that, I didn't like it, what can I do to help, is the best way.
And even if they're not ready to talk to the bullier, if they can help talk to the victim and support them and let them know they have a friend out there in a time of need.
Absolutely.
Whether it's an adult, another student, someone else, that will go a long way.
Right. And help them think things through. What do you need to do in this situation? You know, one of the best ways that somebody who's been bullied can respond is by totally ignoring it and going out and doing some real cool things to be helpful to other people.
And that's if it's good, if it's verbal, but if it's physical, you can't just ignore it.
No, you can't. This is true.
And you think things will get worse this fall, returning to school after COVID?
Yeah, here's the problem. Young people who normally experienced bullying and social anxiety, and those who are neurodiverse, were loving remote learning because their environment wasn't hurtful anymore. And they're going to go off, and it's going to be much more challenging for them when they come back to school.
Because they were in a safe environment. They were protected and distanced from the bullying and whatever was affecting them.
Yes. And then they're going to go right back into the environment where in most schools, they do not have the support they need to deal with those situations.
And this is something schools should be thinking about before students return, how to provide support, how to provide alternatives, how to provide communication.
What I'm going to be trying to do all summer long is say, wait a minute, you have got to realize that the risks to our young people going back to school are going to significantly increase, and you've got to recognize that what you've been doing hasn't been working, zero effectiveness, and you've got to change. You've got to get a student leadership group in there. You've got to focus on mindfulness throughout the school. You've got to absolutely address how staff are treating students, and you've got to improve the manner in which you're responding to these incidents so students can trust you when they're feeling really distressed and maybe considering harming themselves or somebody else.
And since we're getting a fresh start, this might be the best time to intervene, to slow down the bullier and to protect and provide some support to the victim. Since we don't have any bad memories from last year, this is the time to get a fresh start.
Yes.
Start out on the right foot.
And there is funding available to support the emotional and mental well-being of students. So use some of that funding to address the issues of bullying as well as resilience.
Okay, take a moment or two. Tell us about some of your books in this area and what they cover and how to obtain them.
Okay, all my books are on Amazon, and you can see them linked on bepositivelypowerful.com. One book.
Tell us some of the titles, especially the ones that relate to bullying.
Okay. Engage Students to Embrace Civility is a slightly older book, but it's for school leaders, and they can also watch the videos from that site. Be Positively Powerful, a guide for teens on achieving resilience and empowerment, goes through those 7 strategies and then suggests how to use those strategies if somebody's being hurtful to you, if you've been hurtful to somebody else, in close relationships, digitally, and to be a positive leader. Then I wrote a shorter book, Be Positively Powerful, Resilient When Things Get Tough, and those are the 7 strategies for younger kids. And there's a Spanish version of the shorter book.
What other thoughts do you have for parents, for the students who are perhaps being bullied or worried about it going forward as we return to school after COVID?
My thoughts for parents are they need to focus on those 7 resilience strategies. The stronger they can get their kids over the summer and going into the school year. So making sure their kids have trusted adults, good friends, are consistently reaching out to be kind, as a family reaching out to be kind, knowing their strengths and focusing on building those, focusing on gratitude and what's good, practicing mindfulness, standing tall, and walking with pride, and realizing you can't control everything that's going to happen, but you can control how you respond. And then family problem solving, not providing answers to kids, helping them figure out the answers on their own. Those 7 steps, the Be Positively Powerful steps, are what can increase young people's resilience and build them up, empower them for going into school next year.
On the other side of the fence, it's important for schools to adopt a zero tolerance policy and to have effective behavior mechanisms for those who might be the bullier.
I hate the term zero tolerance because that implies you're going to kick the kid out of school. Schools need
to respond in some way. Maybe there are lessons.
They absolutely have to respond. And the way in which they have to respond is to make sure that they are taking steps that will help this child who has been hurtful change their behavior. And that requires getting to the point where they recognize that this was wrong and they recognize it within their heart and soul. Yeah, I did something wrong. Now I have a responsibility to make things right.
And what is the first step to bring that about?
First of all, a lot of kids are hurtful because they want to get to the top of the social ladder. So you got to set up your school. So being hurtful isn't a way to get to the social ladder. That's why you need the really cool kids who are kind and respectful being the ones who are recognized at the top. There's
another way of saying it is you want to promote kindness, not cruelty.
Right,
and
right.
Rise up those kids.
That's got to be the norms of the school. We have to help. We have to all recognize how people rationalize hurtful behavior. 4 ways they rationalize. Number 1 is they spin it. Oh, it's just locker room talk. It was just a joke. 2 is they deny personal responsibility. Someone else started it. Everybody does it. 3 is they downplay the harm. She's overreacting. They're just,
it was nothing. Okay.
It was nothing. And the 4th is they blame the victim. Well, if he didn't, whatever.
Complain or resist.
Yeah,
he enjoyed it.
Right. So we have to recognize those rationalizations. And then there are some key questions. They come from Siladani's research in the psychology of influence. How would you feel if somebody did that to you or your best friend? What commitments have you made? That's why I suggest schools have students write out their commitments. And how does this, how did your behavior apply to your values and commitments?
Okay.
The social
and lastly,
norms,
the people caught in the middle, they should rein in the person who might be offending someone and support the person who might have incurred the wrath. Right.
The witnesses, if you've got some cool students who basically say, hey, we don't do that here. That's not okay. What's going on? Why are you doing this? You're going to stop it in a minute.
And also, if someone on the other says, are you okay? You can join me at the lunch table. Why don't you come to the club with me?
Right.
Just provide support.
Right. Those students are, and helping them gain the insight and skills to be able to safely step in those situations.
Okay.
Really
I would
important.
like to thank, I wish we had some time, but I'd like to thank our guest, Nancy Willard, and the website is embracecivility.org, for talking to us about preventing bullying as we return to school. If you missed any part of this show, you can listen to the podcast at nccradio.org, and there are many other podcasts and many other law-related shows also at nccradio.org. Please join us next week at this same time on 90.3 WHPC for another program on law you should know here on the Voice of Nassau Community College.